A traveler in a lonely place sees strange lights in the sky, and unfamiliar voices whisper in her ear. She tries to ignore them to focus on the path and the way home, but ahead on the moonlit trail she sees a tall figure with two huge red eyes. Her hand wanders to the hilt of her sword as her heart pounds in her throat, but before she can act, the figure unfurls its enormous wings and takes to the sky, its dark shadow falling across her. One who falls under a Mothman's shadow never truly emerges from it. She is haunted by the brief encounter, tormented by voices in the wind and unidentified noises from the darkness, and inflicted with confused dreams of disaster, mayhem, and glowing red eyes. Descriptions of the creature vary depending on the witnesses, as if their very memories may have been warped by the event. Some claim that a Mothman is silent, but others say that it communicates only in whispers that continue to be heard for years after the meeting. The creature's sibilant words always echoing in dark places. Even those who have heard the voice of a Mothman cannot clearly remember what it said, but know that it compelled them to do things they cannot explain. The nightmares caused by a Mothman's encounter are typically followed by catastrophes. Bridges collapse, plagues break out, rivers dry up. The disasters are never the same, but they're always of epic proportions. In the aftermath of such tragedies, survivors emerge from the shambles, crying out of ominous dreams and alien creatures that they've seen, plaguing them in the night. Sometimes victims don't remember an encounter with a Mothman until after the disaster has struck, while other times those who have glimpsed a Mothman are themselves involved in the ensuing calamity, often to the extent that they inadvertently contribute to it. The very point of a Mothman, a creepy harbinger of doom with alien motivations and inexplicable agendas, makes it an ideal candidate for a lengthy adventure. Since the creature is often seen several days or weeks before the strange event occurs, player characters should have plenty of time to investigate the creature and its potential intentions before the actual calamity strikes. Characters might hear rumors of strange occurrences, lights in the sky, whispering voices in the night, great birds or other flying creatures silhouetted against the moon, and so on, only to finally catch a glimpse of red eyes and great wings. The arrival of a Mothman may itself cue the PCs that something is awry, but they'll likely need more clues in order to figure out the Mothman's target and prevent the creature from fulfilling its possibly disastrous goals. Maybe it's something subtle, like the villagers beginning to notice that the water from their well has a strangely metallic taste, or distant thunderclouds that normally don't happen this time of year begin to spark up around the general area. The inclusion of multiple developments within the area creates a great amount of intrigue as player characters try to figure out what the Mothman's goals are and where it plans to strike. That is, even if it is trying to strike. A Mothman's selection of victims and witnesses is also critical to any player characters investigating, since these people are often somehow tied to the future event in question. The mayor targeted by the Mothman might actually be behind the metallic taste in the water, and those looming thunderclouds in the distance might have something to do with the woman accused of being a witch, exiled from the town about 2 months ago. Player characters who encounter Mothman themselves are destined to play some role in the creature's indecipherable schemes. They begin to experience unnerving phenomena in the wake of their brief encounter. Strange, possibly prophetic nightmares of disaster, whispered voices in their rooms at night, echoes in their head that only they can hear, or hallucinations of some strange alien worlds. These kind of adventures work best if the player characters are already caught up in some greater scheme within the area, and their dealings with the Mothman take place after they've already established their primary objectives. For example, they might have been tasked earlier on clearing out some sort of kobold-infested mine. In their fevered dreams, the PCs see themselves going down one branch of the mine's forked passageways to find helpful treasures. But when the PCs follow the same path the next day, they're inadvertently responsible for the valuable mine's total collapse, and perhaps the death of many miners therein. This is also a good way to retroactively unkill player characters that have died in a TPK last session. The next session can open with one of the previously killed player characters waking up in a fevered dream. They look out their window and see a large pair of red eyes staring back at them before flying away. The last session, which ended horribly in whatever fashion the DM or PCs or a combination of the two managed to screw things up, can be swiftly undone with a Mothman. though this is something that should not happen very often, and should not be completely unpunished. Maybe in return for seeing this portent of doom that didn't actually happen, the monster that had previously TPK'd the party comes back in some different, unforeseen way, potentially more dangerous, with more allies of its own. In regards to treasure, a Mothman doesn't have any kind of lair, but the items that a Mothman carries on its person are often enigmatic and seemingly nonsensical. Whenever these strange creatures interact with player characters, they could potentially give them strange trinkets, pendants, pieces of some sort of cloth or broken pottery, a tattered map of a distant region, a stranger's journal entries, wood carvings from a non-indigenous tree. These and other out-of-place tokens all make their way into the hands of those touched by a Mothman. The meaning of such gifts is initially indecipherable. Only when a Mothman's victim is already unknowingly playing into the dread visitor's scheme does it become apparent what these items were meant for. The useless map that was given sops up a spilled glass of poisoned wine. The stranger's journal entries causes a devoted priest's faith to waver, and the wood carving blocks an errant, fatal arrow from nearby archery range. To a Mothman that sees everything at once, and yet remains blind to all but its current objective, these mundane objects can mean the difference between failure and success. Using a Mothman is a great way to incorporate strange and unique items that normally you couldn't find yourself using in the campaign setting. It's important to make these objects immediately not recognizable at first. The Mothman is a gift giver, but he's not one that should be used with basic items that anyone could find anywhere else. This is also a great way to show off homebrew items that you may or may not be entirely sure if they are balanced or not. If the item ends up becoming way too powerful, you can simply have the Mothman take it back at a later point. With enigmatic goals, this is a perfect way to have items come and go. Mothmen can be used in different ways depending on your campaign setting. In Pathfinder's world of Golarion, they date back to a very, very ancient time. Ancient writings of the elves that date back to the time before Earthfall speak of a race of red-eyed heralds of doom, whose appearance invariably preceded great tragedy. Despite Mothman's role in ancient history, most Mothman sightings reported on Golarion have occurred only very recently, and the years leading up to the Age of Lost Omens. Mothman appear to be capable of dwelling in any environment, but are typically seen in temperate, rural areas. This might be because such areas are more heavily populated than wilderness, and thus have more potential witnesses, or because Mothmen give preferential treatment to humanoids, who are most affected by these alien creatures' volatile plots. Included in the description are some homebrew stats to use a Mothman in your D&D 5th edition game. If you'd like videos more like this, make sure to like and comment about how you intend to use a Mothman in your D&D game. And if you're not using D&D, tell me what other systems you think could use this strange cryptid.